What the Happiest Retirees Know by Wes Moss. This is a fantastic book. I know you're really confused how I put this in my list for financial books, but the reason why is ultimately the reason why we save for finances so that we can retire, right? I mean, you want to be good with your money and not go in debt and all that, but ultimately we want to retire. I think the best place to start is knowing what the end is supposed to look like. So begin with the end in mind. What the Happiest Retirees Know by Wes Moss. Let's dive in. Chapter 1. Who is a HROB? Happiest Retirees on the Block. The happiest retirees on the block. So the way this opens up is Wes Moss discusses a couple who called into the radio show asking if they'll be able to take this really big trip they were planning on doing for the reunion. But they didn't just want to have it just the two of them. They wanted a couple of days with their close family, and then they wanted a couple of days with a lot of close friends. And by the end of it, it was for like over 100 people to celebrate this really huge anniversary they were having. As they start talking about what they've done financially with their lives, he's smiling from ear to ear because, quite frankly, they did everything they needed to do to be the happiest retirees on the block. This is where he quickly introduces the 3 core money habits of the happiest retirees on the block. 1, have at least $500,000 in your retirement funds. 2, 0 mortgage within 5 years. And 3, think of multiple streams of income, not one big reservoir. Chapter 2, Who is Your Unhappy Neighbor? I love the movie this brings up. It brings up a movie with John Candy and Dan Aykroyd in it called The Great Outdoors. Dan Aykroyd plays this character who appears rich and wealthy, but you find out very quickly in the movie he's really unhappy. John Candy's character, comfortable, nothing crazy, but on the happiest scale, way over there. It's a fantastic movie, and I love how it ties into basically what we see when you're chasing riches and wealth and you don't have this balance or appreciation of what you're going for, you're going to end up unhappy. But if you know how to use money and you know what your goal is and you have people along with you for the ride, man, is it worth every second. Chapter 3, Money Habits. Think rivers, not reservoir. The climb from $0 to $500,000 in your retirement is the happiest you will be. When you go from $500,000 to $1 million, yeah, it's great, but it's not twice as great as the climb from $0 to $500,000. And there's a point where you have diminishing returns. Having more and more millions of dollars doesn't necessarily make you more happy. The other side of that is if you have only around $100,000, you're going to most likely be in the unhappy camp. Introduces his very simplified budgeting. He calls it TSL, taxes, savings, and lifestyle. Taxes, savings, and living. Taxes is 30%, saving is 20%, living's the other 50%. And this gives you a back of the napkin kind of math in terms of what you'll be looking for when you were in retirement. He also introduces something called a rich ratio, which what I love about this is it allows you to be you. It's not comparing you to a millionaire, it's comparing you to what you have and what you need. A rich ratio is what you have divided by what you need, okay? So if you have $10,000 a month and you need $5,000 a month, your rich ratio is 2. You're doing great. If you have $2,000 a month and you need $4,000 a month, you have 0.5. That's not good. You want 1 or better, basically. He also introduces something called FTG, fill the gap. Basically, if you need $10,000 a month in income in retirement, based off your asset allocation and of your corpus, let's say you're only getting $7,000 a month, then your FTG is $3,000 a month. And he discusses different ways you can kind of fill the gap with that. Chapter 4, Curiosity Habits. Develop 3.6 core pursuits. What's a core pursuit? It's a hobby on steroids, is what he discusses. Basically, is if you have about 1.9 habits, you're more likely to end up in the unhappiest retirees on the block camp. If you have closer to 4, 3.6 to be specific, then you're more likely to end up in the happiest retirees on the block camp. So one core pursuit can lead to several other core pursuits. For example, if you're really passionate about tennis and traveling. You can do competition tennis, so you can travel, you can stay on top of your game, you can always make yourself do a little bit better. Chapter 5, family habits. Get your kids off the payroll. Basically, he talks about all the intertwinings of having kids. Most people, if they have around 2.5 kids, they end up in the happy camp. If they have 0.5 kids, they tend to end up in the unhappy camp. Also, if you're within driving distance, about a 2-hour drive, if I recall correctly, of your kids when you retire. If you're a day's drive away, that can be not quite as beneficial. And if you live next door, it might be a little too close for comfort. You know what I'm saying? Chapter 6, get married or remarried. Basically, he says you're allowed one do-over. Once you start doing more than that, you're likely to end up very unhappy. There's a couple reasons for this. He discusses that basically having a life partner, that old saying of, twice the joy and half the burden. Having a partner to do this life with will ultimately make you more happy. Chapter 7, faith habits. Believe, give, and do good. Basically, he says, doesn't matter what faith or religion you associate yourself with, as long as you believe in something bigger than yourself, then encourages you to do something back into the community, you're set. He does also say that if in order to put you in the Happiest Retirement on the Block camp, going to church at least once a week is more likely to end you up there. Here's a funny thing. Also, if you do more than 2 times a week, you're likely to end up in the unhappiest retirees on the block. Chapter 8, social habits. Connect to thrive. The unhappiest retirees on the block tend to take 2.6 vacations a year. Happiest retirees on the block tend to take 3.6 vacations a year. One whole vacation difference between them. By the way, staycations do not count. So basically, what the book talks about is when you're traveling, you tend to put a lot of your other activities together. So traveling with friends, traveling with family, getting connection. He also states that social groups are critical in this. And the more social groups and the more friends you have, the exponential happiness you will have as well. Unlike going to church or a couple of other things, there's really no cap and there's no diminishing returns on friends and social groups. So you have a travel group, faith group, civic groups, exercise groups, tennis and pickleball groups, golf groups, as well as music and concert groups. So think about that. It doesn't have to be a church. It doesn't have to be that. You can find a hobby or a core pursuit and find a social group that's connected with that as well. Chapter 9, health habits. Eat, drink, and have a ball. The happiest retirees on the block tend to be kind of the masters of the middle, the masters of not doing too much, but not doing too little either. A lot of them eat clean, healthy food like the Mediterranean diet, the Whole30, things like that. Some people are more carnivorous, some people are plant-based. Basically, every body is different, and every person is going to identify healthy as a little bit different. Tend to eat whole foods, not processed foods. They are also a big fan of the ings, walking, swimming, and running, being active, being social. Chapter 10, home habits. Live mortgage free. Is that if you have a home and let's say you owe $30,000 left on your home and you have $90,000 in your after-tax account, go ahead and pay off the mortgage. If your mortgage amount is a third or less of your after-tax retirement account, then go ahead and pay off your mortgage. If it's your 401k, Roth IRA, don't touch it yet. Also talks about that the HROBs tend to not downsize, and the reason being, they have every intention of their family coming over in order to celebrate for the holidays. He stated that 70% of HROBs tend to pay off their mortgage early, most of them by doing very little every month, such as adding extra $100 or rounding up to a nice round number. So you don't have to be aggressive and pay it off in 5 years. You can have a 30-year mortgage and just be mindful that you plan on paying it off earlier by just rounding up or adding a little extra every month or adding an extra pay every year He also tells this beautiful story about a widow who was grieving and was going to sell her home. In order to sell her home, she had to clean it up. She had to pay someone to come on over. She had to paint. She had to declutter. She do all this stuff. By the time she was done with all that, she loved her home so much that she decided to not sell. And what it boiled down to was when they started talking about the social circles she would be leaving, friends that she's had for 30 plus years, family that lived close by, doctors that she trusted. Even if she only moved 5, 10 miles away, her entire social dynamic would change. So, yes, she ended up staying because the house looked great and she really loved her home anyway. But what was really more important is the social circles she had developed while she was there. Because once you leave that, you lose a lot of the reason why you thrive. Chapter 11, Investing Habits. Be a tomorrow investor. Participation, not perfection. Don't focus on timing the market, focus on time in the market. Dividend investing, and how when you use the dividend investing and then reinvest those dividends into it, how your corpus can grow exponentially. Chapter 12, Spending Habits, understanding the power of the 4+% rule. When you retire, you can take 4% of your worth and you can use that to live on every year. So in year one, if you have $1 million, you'll be able to scoop off $40,000 for that year to live off of. In year two, you're going to have a little bit extra because of hopefully a stock market improved and your portfolio grew. So we're going to account for the 4% plus inflation. It would be $42,000 you'll be able to take off to live off of that year. What he introduces is called the 4+ rule. Basically, it's about 4.5%. Now, 4.5% probably don't sound like a big difference, but it is. It's a 12% difference. So think about getting a 12% raise at work. It's a pretty significant difference between the two. The 4% rule has been an old standby in the financial industry for decades. Some financial people are saying anywhere between 3.5 to 5%. This is all back of the napkin math, and it will probably change once you retire, and is going to probably change through retirement. So this is great. So you know what the goal is. So you begin with the end in mind. So what I love about this book is there's 12 chapters. 3 of them are about money. 3. 2 of them are about being unhappy versus happy. So 7 of the habits of the happiest retirees on the block are about how you live your day-to-day life, not related to money. It's about who you connect with, how you connect with, and making sure that you're overall connected. This is an amazing financial book. I hope you enjoy. Until next time.